up your eyes. There's nothing on my body left to say. I tried 1,000 times. I tried to say I love you, but you didn't hear me. And you're passive aggressive. Convince me other people, they don't care about me. And you're passive aggressive. You're passive aggressive. You're passive aggressive. Hey. And you look at me, tell me all that. Follow you around like a dog that needs more. Everything that you want it, you small
Yes, indeed, gentlemen. We've got the same car, same opening sequence, and we're even at the same location. Are we gonna use the same music? Yeah, let's say we reused the same music. You might ask, what's the point of doing the same thing all over again? Allow me to deflect your question and send it past me towards that BMW. I mean, really, what's the point of doing the same thing over again? When what we have here is supposedly a new BMW, that has in fact merely been facelifted. We're well aware that aside from the headlights, the grille, maybe the gauge cluster, and some other stuff you have to try really hard to remember, nothing much has really changed. It's basically the same car, though the asking price is a bit different. And there's actually a reasonable explanation for that. This one is packing a slightly different motor, which wasn't available previously. And it fits the car beautifully. Today we're going to be reviewing a BMW 750LD. So let's address the elephant in the room. I think this is the first time in the entire history of my channel when passers-by look at my car and say that the kidney grille looks like shit. As clients, nobody has ever mistreated us like that before. And that includes BMW's design team. Some dude from BMW even wrote a whole article about why BMW makes the kidney grille so huge nowadays. And we all know that making excuses is a sign of weakness. We genuinely have no idea why they're so big, but they just don't fit the car. And here's another thing I noticed. I thought to myself that after a week they'd grow on me, that everybody is in fact mistaken, and that the pictures don't do it justice. But no! That's the way this thing always looks. And here you are constantly wondering, how the hell did they botch this facelift so bad? There's really no other way to put it. So when you've got a radiator grille as wide as this one, it has to be pressed up against the headlights, which visually narrows the entire front end. Usually the grille fills the entire space between the headlights on cars that are physically narrow. There's just no other way to do it. But here it just sort of happened, and we're looking at a total disaster. It's still anybody's guess why they went with this look. The pre-facelift car was simply better looking. There's no logical explanation for why they did this. We'll go ahead and use a wide-angle camera lens and get right up in its nose. We'll even go so far as to put that shot into the preview for this video, which we're gonna call facelift that's gotten out of control. So yeah, that's what we're dealing with here. This just goes against all logic, but that's how they made it. As for the rest, well, things either haven't changed or have gotten worse. Oh yeah, there's also a golf club on the side. Let's go ahead and show the people. So the golf club also looks pretty terrible. The older car had a flowing sort of club, but here it looks as if the designer took his kid's angle ruler thing that he brought from school and traced along the side. I don't see the logic in this particular design element. For those who don't know, I actually went to graphic design school for a good 3 years. Anyway, even a guy like me who was always skipping lessons and only made it to the 3rd year, even I know that slapping this sort of thing on is just wrong. It doesn't work here. But that's what they decided to go with, despite the fact that it used to be better. They've also slightly tweaked the mirrors, fitted the car with a new set of M-style bumpers, they've installed some new taillights, which are actually not that bad. And well, that's about it. If we were to go for the door to climb inside the cabin, we'll find that nothing has changed except for the gauges and maybe a few minor things here and there which I couldn't remember if my life depended on it. Even that tablet in the back placed inside the armrest is the same. It's a Samsung Galaxy Tab A, which if I'm not mistaken came out 5 years ago, while the car was refreshed this year. I guess they found a warehouse full of these tablets that nobody was buying, except for BMW, and that's what they decided to go with. They even screwed up something that they supposedly got right. Now check out this wonderful, godly, dare I say it, key. Here you are hanging out with your friends, you take it out, and start doing the whole unlocking thing, checking your range. It has a touchscreen and even a wireless charger, meaning you can recharge this key without connecting any wires. So this key is actually standard issue for this car. I mean the 750 in particular. If you were to buy a lesser 7 Series, this key would be an optional and fairly expensive extra. Okay, it's telling me that the key might overheat, and you need to keep it somewhere cool. Okay then. Anyway, here's the paradoxical thing with this key. So when all of this came out, I think back in 2016 or maybe even late 2015, this was cutting edge. It was way ahead of the curve and super high tech, and it looks great too. But today every manufacturer, I mean even if you were to buy a car for, let's call it $30,000 to $45,000, you'd be able to download an app to your phone, which provides loads more functionality on a better looking and much more convenient screen than the one you get on this key, which as an option costs a lot more than the phone that you're already carrying with you anyway. It's still sort of cool, but somewhat redundant, I guess. I mean, what's the point? But there is a silver lining. In my view, there is a perfect aspect to the 7 Series, by which I mean the way it drives. You get a bunch of different modes, including Sport, Comfort. There's also an Eco Pro mode, Adaptive, and so on. That's all great and everything. But when I get into this car, I always press Comfort twice. The first time for when it was running in Adaptive, for example, the second time to get it into Comfort Plus, which turns this into something of a waterbed. But if we were to compare this to an American car, which would be a waterbed by default, this particular waterbed reacts to steering input as if it were a sports car. Though spirited driving isn't this thing's forte. It is sort of all over the place when cornering. But this is lovely. This 7 Series is very quiet, nice, and supple. This car could have been as comfortable as an S-Class Mercedes, but it's not quite there yet. Allow me to illustrate my point. So we're coming up to a red light. We slow down and come to a full stop, and only an S-Class owner would truly understand what's wrong with this picture. Here we are, almost there. So I'm slowing down really carefully right now. And the car just did a bobbing motion. Those who are familiar with the S-Class know that it's unique in that it almost doesn't bob when you come to a full stop. But this one does, which is due in part to the start-stop function, which immediately shuts the motor off when you come to a halt. The box goes out of gear, and all of this is happening simultaneously, which is what makes the car behave this way. You don't get that in an S-Class. You just can't get away from that. Look at that, there's a pre-facelift car standing right next to us. And it's also a long wheelbase 7 Series. This is such an amazing drive, what with the whole world basically revolving around us. As for everything else, if you don't care about that little detail as much as I do, this car is top-notch. S-Class levels of comfort aside, let's not forget that we have Sport mode. There's a Sport mode and a Sport individual mode. It doesn't have Sport Plus though. Oh my god! I think we ran over a manhole cover in that corner. I take it you're not being thrown around too much back there, right? It's no longer wafting, and the steering just became super heavy. This is pretty awesome. I say we put the gearbox into Sport mode. It reacts well to throttle input. Compared to the Sport mode in a certain Volkswagen we tested not too long ago, this is on a completely different level. In that respect, it's a true BMW. Now we put it back into Comfort Plus, and the moment you go from Sport to Comfort Plus, you can feel it go like... It relaxes all of a sudden. The difference between Sport and Comfort Plus, given that it doesn't have a Sport Plus, which you usually get in the sportier cars from BMW's lineup, So they have it, yeah, but this one doesn't. Anyway, that's the genius of this car. Then there's the gesture control function. Oh, please, come on. There we go. It allows you to toggle between songs. You can sort of poke it to mute the sound system, or turn it back on again. I think they've programmed in a new gesture, which... I'm still learning all of them, but they work regardless. They do actually work. You can do this movement and it opens the navigation screen. This is how you toggle between tracks. To be honest, I like the poking gesture a bit more. It's still pretty cool though. You might think all of this is useless, but once you get a bit used to it, all of a sudden it's so lame to push buttons. Seriously, you don't want to even touch them. You just... So yeah, you also get adaptive cruise control and every option you can imagine. It's very quiet thanks to the double glazed windows, and it's just amazing how perfect this car drives. So look, right now we're going over some bumps and manhole covers. We're gliding over all of that without even touching a wheel. It's delicious the way this thing wafts down the road. I have a lot of love for the 7 Series. Driving one of these is always so nice and relaxing, but there are some drawbacks. For example, you can't order a 7 Series with a heated windshield. I even got in touch with BMW's Russian office to ask them how I can get my car with a heated windshield. Perhaps I could order one from Germany and spec it out the way I want? But it turns out that BMW doesn't offer a heated screen anywhere in the world. You just can't get a 7 Series with a heated windshield. I was told by a BMW rep that it's unnecessary, since this car is for being chauffeured around in. But come on, it's a BMW, which is not only a chauffeur car. This car has a sport mode. My Golf doesn't have it either. Of course it doesn't. But my Skoda Rapide, I mean the $17,000 giveaway Skoda Rapide, that actually comes with one. You can get it in a Lada Vesta for 14 grand, but not in this car for $185,000. It just isn't available. You can't get a washer jet for the backup camera. You might say that it's your chauffeur's problem, but I mean, it wouldn't hurt to have one. And it's just not there. You also don't get... What else did I get triggered about? The sunroof isn't exactly a panoramic one. It's just a big sunroof and a smaller sunroof, which don't quite work. If you try opening it up, it doesn't give you all that much. Though I do like how it moves back and forth. That's it. That's the opening you get. Let me grab the camera and give you a close-up look. And that's all you get. Can you even call this a sunroof? Let alone a panoramic one. What the f is this shit? BMW, ladies and gents. And it bobbed again when coming to a stop. You felt it, right? And it doesn't help to be chauffeured either. Well, I mean, this isn't the worst car to be chauffeured around in. Not by a long shot. But it should also be a car for the driver. You should be able to get behind the wheel and feel like you made it. And not as if you're working for some big shot. Check out how the wheel rotates. Looks like either an electro-hydraulic or a fully electric power steering system. What else does this thing lack? Oh yeah, it doesn't have any normal USB ports. If I were to buy this car, I'd have to replace all of my cables. The only regular USB port is right here, where you stick in the flash drive. But if you stick one in there, you can't close the cover. Good job. So it's either that, or a few conventional power outlets where you insert a normal phone charger with a USB port, unless you want to swap all of your wires. Otherwise, all of the ports up front and in the back are Type-C. And that's all you get. Lovely, right? You also get a wireless charger. Then again, if you have a wireless charger, why would you need anything else? You also don't get any 220-volt power outlets, which they could have installed in a $185,000 car. There's no power outlet in the trunk. You might say that a trunk-mounted power outlet is unnecessary in a car made for being chauffeured around in. But it does have a hatch for transporting skis. So me driving around in this thing with a pair of skis sticking through into the cabin is completely normal. But meanwhile, it doesn't have a power outlet in the trunk. And me being a rich dude going on a ski trip, I might want to bring a drone with me, right? Some action cameras and God knows what else. And these are all things that I'd prefer to charge from a trunk-mounted power outlet, which isn't available in this car, unlike that freaking ski hatch, which I so desperately need in this thing. Me being a YouTuber, that's what I'd prefer to have instead of that damn hatch. Then again, when I used to have those rails in the back. The front passenger seat is still lacking a massage function. The button for flipping on the steering wheel heater is on the wheel itself now. Oh yeah, we also get a fucking slot for CDs now, right here. Instead of normal USB, we went with Type-C because apparently it's super fucking modern, and nobody uses regular USB anymore. Meanwhile, every motherfucker has got CDs nowadays. Evidently, everybody's got some fucking CDs lying around at home, which they'd want to play in here, right? Or maybe they've got DVDs. Alright, let's watch some fucking DVDs. Which I don't even know where you can fucking buy anymore. Meanwhile, this thing doesn't have regular USB ports, which were invented way after your fucking DVDs. I mean, what the actual fuck? Because modern tech? I mean, what the hell were these people thinking? Some aspects of this car blow my mind. But none of that matters. All of that stops bothering you once you go about driving. This car rocks. The gauges are telling me that we've been averaging 24 miles per gallon. 24 miles per gallon! And that's on the high end. Usually I drive around in Comfort Plus, throw in a bit of highway driving, and all of a sudden you're averaging 29.5. Let me show you how fast this thing gets to 62. Sport mode, put the gearbox into sport, we're standing still, and now we do a launch. 4.8 seconds. 4.7 sounds realistic to me. 4.7 doesn't seem unreasonable. That's a solid result. Outside temperature is 19 degrees Celsius, and that was our second launch in a row. It actually gave us that second consecutive launch. But will it give us a third one? That would make this BMW pretty unique, but I'm pretty sure it's not gonna happen. Nope, didn't give us the third launch. Yeah, you can feel that the car is in pain. 5.3 that time, so it's still a BMW. Granted, 3 launches in a row is a bit harsh, but 4.7 seems realistic. And that's on a car that does 24 miles per gallon, and typically no less than 29.5. Now that's what I call a quality production. This is one very efficient and all-around awesome motor. In the name of progress, we've done something unique here. So I have a friend who lives in Frankfurt, who has access to BMW's latest technology, and is able to order stuff that hasn't even gone on sale yet. Anyway, he provided us with a redesigned 2030 model year example. We're still 10 years away from this thing hitting dealerships, but today this nice chap was able to lend us his car, so that we can all learn in advance what the future has in store for BMW. If you think the kidney grill is huge as it is, just look at where they'll be in 10 years from now. We can discuss all the livelong day whether this is ethical or not, but we're still going to be hitting the streets in this thing. The owner obviously doesn't drive it anywhere himself, what with the secrecy, camouflage and everything, but we're breaking the rules and taking this car to the center of St. Petersburg, where anybody can check it out and share their opinion. Let's see how the people react. Maybe they'll actually dig it. Right? So this 7 Series is the long version. I just fell right in, not having found an armrest to lean on. It would seem as if we're sitting in a normal car, though the screens do give away that something's up here, so it doesn't have split seating in the back. You can drive now. Take me away. we have the option of unfolding the armrest, and despite this not being the top trim level, which would have a split rear seat, you at the very least get something in here. They've integrated a tablet, and the car is a long wheelbase model. Right, what else we got in here? I see one button, which apparently does it all. Now the front seat is folding away from me. Here's the tablet. I think I can even remove it from the armrest. We were able to extract it earlier, but I haven't been able to do that recently. Something's happening up front, but I can't get the tablet out. It's still doing something over there. Great, it's finally giving me a footrest. Now we're balling. I didn't block the right mirror for you, did I? A little bit, yeah. A little bit? You know what? I don't really care. And we're actually just getting started. Let's see if I can fold it into a lounge chair. Okay, looks like you don't get that option here. Probably because it's a bench seat. So I can't lie down. That's all you get. Isn't that a bummer? Then again, this isn't half bad. This is actually pretty nice. Or you can bring it all back at the touch of a button. And here I am sitting in a more or less normal position. Take me that way, while I switch on the massager. It's very chill back here. The rear seat passengers also get these nice pillows built into the headrests. I can also do this, and this, and this while I'm at it. As they say, the problems of the peasants do not the Tsar bother. This is a great way to spend your time. I just noticed that we don't have a remote. It should be here somewhere. They've even molded out a spot for it, which looks like it should contain a remote. Notice that in this position I can't reach that screen. I can't say I'm that upset. The back seat is still an awesome place to be. Though I'm still very curious where they put that remote, and why I can't remove the tablet. I remember taking it out in this very car. Something's not right. Let's not forget that when they did the facelift, Samsung had already started producing a new tablet, which they could have used in here, but for whatever reason they didn't. Here's another inconvenience. Let's say I want to charge my phone, assuming I have the appropriate cable. First off, you can only use a double-ended Type-C cable. There are no normal USB ports back here. Second, all of the ports, including HDMI and everything else, are located right over here. So that's one inconvenient spot and another inconvenient spot. The placement is far from ideal. And there are a couple of manufacturers that place all of this inside the armrest. Some have a compartment right here, but that's where the cup holders live in this car. Maybe they've rectified that in the top trim level with the individual seats, trays, and all of that. In those cars, the console comes all the way up to here. As for the heated seats, you can either use the tablet or reach all the way down here. That's also where you adjust the fan speed and temperature. Oh, turns out the heater was switched off. Just when I needed it the most. You can even tell by my voice that riding in the back is quite relaxing. It's hard to find fault with the back seat in this car. If only I could extract this tablet. Why won't it pop out? I'm guessing it's a malfunction. Okay, moving along then. When it's all said and done, the BMW 7 Series is still an awesome car. It might even be better than it used to be, except for the exterior, which not everybody's gonna like. But the key element of this equation is that new motor, which wasn't available previously. We're talking an insane quad-turbo 3-liter diesel, which makes this car faster than an X5 M50D. But you won't find a single M badge on this thing. Bear in mind, though, that this isn't the top-of-the-line offering. When I picked this car up from the press fleet, they gave me a permit which allows me to drive it, and I think the papers said it costs $183,202. So this car costs $183,000. And this one isn't even fully loaded. Like I said, this car is lacking split rear seating. You can't park it using the key fob. I'm assuming you know which feature I'm referring to. I don't think it has the optional M-Spec brakes, steering wheel, though I don't know whether you can even get the M package for this model. I reckon you could easily be pushing 190 with a few options, which is anything but cheap. I'd actually say it's seriously expensive. And that's coming from someone who drove a 740LD and a 760, which is the fastest 7 Series ever, getting up to 62 in 3.7 seconds. And now I've also had a go in the 750. So thanks to the suspension kinematics in this thing, the acceleration doesn't feel all that vigorous, which is something that even our cameraman Vladislav noticed. Did it feel fast to you? It gives you a good shove in first gear, but after that it's serene even, despite its 4.7-second time. The SVR also does 0 to 62 in 4.7 seconds, and that's a wild experience. Same goes for the 760, by the way. You just don't feel the acceleration. So why not instead get a 740LD? With all of the good stuff, but for much less at under 160 grand. Personally, I'd get one of those, with the 750 being reserved for those who always want to stay ahead, and who really need those acceleration times. Everybody else could save a ton of cash and make do with the 740, which is in no way inferior to this one. It won't have 400 horsepower, I think it's maybe closer to 300, but it consumes the same exact amount of fuel, and it's just as quiet, making this a sort of niche vehicle, though there might be a few people out there looking for a bit of status who are going to dig this one. In the end, the 7 Series is a brilliant car that I'd actually keep for life, if it didn't turn into a pumpkin when winter rolls around. In the village, I mean. And there's no way around that. I might do a separate video on the trouble that a 7 Series might get you into during the winter, which is why a lot of people buy a second car to complement their 7 Series, or driving around in the winter while the BMW sits in the garage. I mean, really, come on. Right, big thanks for watching this video. Good luck and goodbye. Translation and voiceover by BMI Russian.